When you are honest with yourself, it doesn't take a public announcement or anything like that. It doesn't take you having to tell somebody that, hey, I'm being honest right now. It doesn't take you having to externalize anything. That's part of the scary thing about being honest with yourself, is that it's you seeing you. And many times we engage in externalizing being seen or being heard or being felt or being known, and we've never done that with ourselves. A lot of people will say, I feel seen, I feel heard. Have you heard or seen yourself, is the question. Have you done that? And if you haven't done that, why is there this want to externally have being seen or being wanted or being heard before you even give it to yourself? A lot of the things we talk about on this channel are you starting inside and then going outside, because as somebody goes within, there they go without. Like as a man goes within, then he goes without, whatever the saying is. But the point is that a lot of these things that you're searching for are not going to happen until you start to get right with it on the inside. And how do you do the inner work? And we're going to explain that in this video on being honest with yourself, what that's like, and what the effects of that are, the byproducts of being honest with yourself. And the first thing is that you have to understand what may come to you once you start beginning to be honest with yourself is shame and guilt. First things that may happen. And you have to understand that the shame and guilt are most definitely coming from places that are externalized. You've been taught to feel shame about yourself. You've been told to feel guilty about this thing. You've learned that, you should probably really kind of like limit, the way that you laugh, or maybe you laugh too loud, or maybe you smile too big, or maybe you talk too loud, or maybe you're too much of an introvert. All of those things are a merit-based measurement that you're discerning with something outside of you. Something outside of you said, hey, you're a little bit too much. It's quantifying you. And now you're quantifying yourself. I'll never forget what a teacher told me. This friend of mine who's becoming a teacher, he said, a lot of the kids in the classroom won't listen to me because I don't look like them. And I said, oh, well, what do you mean? And I knew exactly what he meant, because growing up, many of the teachers that we had did not look like us. And so we acted a certain way until we just didn't feel represented in any way or shape or form or culturally heard. That being said, he said a lot of the kids understand innately that hegemony is going on. They feel that I'm attempting to learn more about them so I can better control them. And what ends up happening is, and I said, what's hegemony? He said, hegemony is when, if I don't want you to talk, I don't put my hand over your mouth. What I do is I teach you to put your hand over your mouth. And there, when your hand is over your mouth, I hold it there, and then I can let go. And now what are you doing? You are limiting, and you're filtering yourself. You are being controlled without me having to control you. A lot of people, they talk about this on Neuroknowledge a lot. He says, a lot of people talk about conspiracy theories and the government's watching me and all the spies that are like, after me and whatnot. And he's like, you need to be more concerned with how you're watching yourself and the things that are going on in your head before you're even concerned with things outside of it. And I think that is such a diabolically paramount thing to focus on, because yes, there are these things going on outside of us, but have you actually taken inventory of the inside? How are you limiting yourself? How much have you been taught to quantify yourself? Do you think you're too much? Do you think you should be quieter? Do you think you should be this different persona that you've never felt you are? That is where the key is when you start asking those questions and you get honest with yourself. And one of the first times that I was honest with myself, I was in a relationship in high school, and it was going perceivably great. It was going actually really well. And I went to the counselor for the first time, one of the first times. And I sat down with her, and we went over what was going on and all this stuff, this, that, and the third, and we talked. And she then brought out a sheet of paper. And before I continue the story, what I'm going to say is, there is most likely something that's happened in your childhood or early on adolescence where you were taught to feel less than or possibly limited in a capacity. And then you somehow internalize that and just kind of kept it spinning no matter what. It's kind of like the top in Inception. They planted that idea, and now it's just part of who you are. And it's to no blame or judgment to anybody. The first thing I ask to people who tell me about their parents and like, oh, it's like this, and that, and the third. They're really hard, they're really tough, this, that, and the third. And I say, wow, I wonder what their parents were like. And then they're like, let me tell you, it was even crazier. And it's we take on pieces from other people to the point that we're not even ourselves when we look at it on its face. We're this amalgam of different things that have been passed on to us. And we don't even really at our core understand authentically who we are. So we got to chip away at that. And I had an opportunity to do that in this counselor's office. And she said, on this sheet of paper, which one of these words do you identify with most when you're feeling this in this relationship? I tell you what, I saw this word right away and I hesitated because I didn't want to tell her that I felt this way. And it wasn't even just telling her, it was coming to terms with it myself. It was being honest with myself about it. I said, I feel unimportant. I feel really unimportant. And I sat there with that for a moment because I'd never said that. I had never acknowledged that either. So saying it was even more radically wild to me than even just acknowledging it. And we dove into that because guess what? It had little to nothing to do with the relationship. This is about a lot of other things going on. This spanned out to the sports I was playing, the way I was being with my friends, the way I was just being as a human. I felt unimportant. That went back to, my parents splitting up and then the way that it was handled and all this stuff. And it's to no blame of them. It's just what happened. And you develop these stories on the inside of who you are or who you should be. And I felt that I definitely had a ceiling and I was hitting it. And I was feeling like, that ceiling could go no further into the realm of importance. And that was when we started to get into the work. And really, a lot of the things I talk about here are just getting you to not even the first base. It's just getting you to the batters, just getting you to the practice swing. I forget the designated hitter, the batter's box, just getting you in there. So you're acknowledging what's going on. And I had figured that out and I was able to say, I'm feeling pretty unimportant right now and it's to nobody else's blame right now, but I gotta take a walk or I gotta take a beat or I gotta do a lap or something. And I was then able to start applying it to my life. It's not going to make me feel important to get get an A on this test or to win this race or to, be the best or to get voted or for somebody to say yes to me about, whatever it may be, for me to feel validated from some external source. I was able to source it myself. I was able to say, I can feel important without anything else changing outside of me. I change it within. And when I was honest with myself, there was this immense amount of fear. And I can't explain to you, when you are honest with yourself, when you even attempt to be honest with yourself, there's going to be fear right off bat, right off top, because it's scaring the livelihood out of you of the way that you've been being. It's stripping away the reality that you've built for yourself and these things that you've been telling yourself to be like, oh, this is what it is. And when you're honest with yourself, you finally have to engage with a reality where it's not. It's not what it is. Actually, at its core, this is who you can be. This is the possibility. There's some really cool stuff that can happen here. So when you start engaging with the honesty with yourself, you start engaging with the possibility of really, really, really amazing things, the freedom to be you. And that is where the gold is in being honest with yourself. And at a young age, when I was finally honest with myself and I said, well, I feel unimportant because of these things. And I know these things aren't, directly, telling me to feel unimportant, but I feel it anyways, and I need to deal with that. And I had to deal with it. And I couldn't deal with it until I was, you guessed it, honest with myself. So for you, the work that I'm proposing or challenging you with, and this is in no way like a slight to you or anything like that or judgment or anything like that. It's in the attempt to be honest with yourself, first, engage with where you feel discomfort. When you just see something that makes you feel a little bit off, that is probably where some of the work needs to be addressed. Two, what have you been avoiding? Maybe you've been avoiding that discomfort. Maybe you've been just passively avoiding certain things, conversations, maybe writing something down. And then lastly, privately confronting it with yourself, just by yourself. I challenge you in no way to talk to a counselor about this at all, but it is, what is making you uncomfortable? What have you been avoiding? Compile that up and then privately confront that. Maybe that's journaling. It is terrifying to write certain things down. I'll just say that off top. I don't know who else feels this, but sometimes I'm journaling and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna write this down, aren't I? I'm acknowledging this. It can be terrifying because you are a human dealing with yourself. And that, at the end of the day, is the toughest thing to deal with. It's not the relationships, it's not the work, it's not really, friends or anything external. Dealing with yourself is probably one of the most important things that you'll ever do in your life. And until you do that, you cannot change your external reality. And changing your external reality shouldn't even be on the checklist. Addressing yourself should be the first thing. That should just be page 1, maybe chapter 1, addressing myself. Because once you do that, you're able to start dealing with things without even engaging with the external, with the 3D. You want to get right within before you even deal without. And just saying certain things out loud, like, I love myself, or looking in the mirror and saying, I like you, that is tough for people to do. That is really tough for people to do. And when you have big feelings and when you feel hypersensitive, that stuff can just, it can level you. Just to hear you saying it. So when you attempt to get honest with yourself, and this is just a 101, y'all, I'm not even going into the 2.0 or even the 1.5 of this, but it's just, the beginning is to get honest with yourself. And until you do that, you can't really change a whole lot, I don't believe. Can't transmutate without awareness. And so the value of getting honest with yourself is a really beautiful thing. And it doesn't have to be something that's bad or something that's you're reaping up from the past or whatever that may be. But it can simply be expressing the way that you feel about you or about a situation to yourself. I feel unimportant when I feel unimportant I feel unimportant where and what's the scenario. And then let's start to undo that. Let's start to address why that is. Well, this happened when I was 7 or 8. Okay. And now, what can we do about that? What can we say to that 7 or 8-year-old version of yourself? Yeah? What can we say to them? What can we say to the version of yourself right now? How can we start to rally together and really start, doling out some positive compliments or just some positive reinforcement to these versions, just to get everybody on the same page? It's a beautiful thing. You can really start doing that, but it can't happen until you're honest with yourself. And I challenge you to really take that on and see what it's like. See what it's like. May not be for you. May not be your cup of tea. I love when I hear stories about people that are just getting honest with themselves in their 50s or 60s or even their 70s. And it's a little story about that. There was a man who went off to war. And he, came back, got checked for PTSD, and they said, you seem to be sound of mind and at peace. And he's like, cool, yeah, thank you. And so he goes on, into his 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and he's hanging out with his grandkids. And I believe, as the story was told, a car backfired outside. The muffler, backshot, and he froze. And then he just started weeping uncontrollably. And something about it was his fault or something like that. The body really does keep the toll. It keeps the score all the time. And we never know what may arise until we confront it. And you don't have to have that moment like this veteran did. You can deal right now. You can really get into it right now. And once you start doing that work, then you can expand and grow and change your life. That's the reward for it all. I wasn't able to even deal remotely with the idea of me expressing that I feel unimportant. I would never have admitted that before that question. I would have been like, no, I'm fine. Well, why are you here? Man, just some argument, man. I don't know. This relationship's got me like all like vulnerable and stuff, whatever. Oh, what do you feel like? I don't know. Just defensiveness and just, like constant just deflection, just like, ka. And then, at the core of it, I remember finding that word and I just broke down, man. I broke down. What's that word for you? What is that word for you? And it doesn't need to be a sad thing. It can just be something where you're being honest with yourself. So I challenge you to get honest with yourself. Just a little step. It ain't even a big one. I don't think it is. But I think it's a very important one that you can take privately. You don't have to tell anybody about it. You may not even have to journal about it. But doing some of the meditative work or just the inner work on that, sitting with yourself and getting honest with yourself can do wonders for your life. So I hope that you're able to give yourself some time to do that. We will see you in the next video. Thanks so much for tuning in.